How's it going? So in today's tutorial, we're going to be making a really cool kind of cyberpunk logo intro. You can use text, you can use your logo, whatever you want. We're going to use this almost like a template so you can drop in whatever you want, but let's get into how to do this. So this is going to be rendered in Eevee. We got some really cool stuff going on, and if you press play, we have a really interesting parallax effect going on in this scene. Now, if you want to get the already finished ready scene, you can grab it on Patreon for $2 on tier 1. There is tier 2 and tier 3, and you can get a bunch of really cool stuff with that, including exclusive tutorials, 10 procedural materials a month. I show my client work. A bunch of other cool things are on the Patreon if you want to check that out in the description. But with that being said, let's learn how to make this really cool thing. Now, first thing we're going to do is head on and get what a really cool font. So I'm going to type in sci-fi font and make sure to put free in the search just to make sure that you're not. So make sure that you can get free stuff. So it looks like DAF font is always going to be a really cool option for this. So you can go ahead and just download whatever font you want, and you can unzip that file and your font will be ready to be used. But you can use really any font you like. Now I'm going to open up Blender here, and we're going to go straight into the text modeling portion of the tutorial. So what we're going to do is hit Shift A, and we're going to click text. And I'm going to go with RX90 just to make sure we have this guy rotated correctly. And I'm going to hit the period key just to make sure my whole world origin is in the right spot. Now let's click the A, and right here on the horizontal, click center. Now that we have our text centered out, I'm going to hit tab, and I'm going to type in just any word I want. For me, BLEND seems appropriate as, it's a Blender tutorial. And now we have that. Now let's get our font. We're going to click the font section, click this little thing, and you have all your other fonts that are in your computer. If this dialog doesn't come up, that's all right. You can go to the font that you saved, this one right here, and now I have my font. Now what you're going to want to do is take this font and hit Shift D, and then I'm just going to go here to the outliner and hide the one I just duplicated. That's really important to do because one of them is going to be sort of the base of the text, and one of them is going to be the neon sign of the text. So with this one, we're going to go down here to geometry and extrude it just a little bit, something like that. And then you can see how this is, full. There's no empty open spots. We kind of want this part to be hollow. So right here on fill mode, I think we're going to do front. No, we actually need to do back. So now the back is nice and empty. Let's go ahead and bring in that one we just duplicated. And I'm going to go ahead and move him to the front just like that. He's flat, but we'll move to the front right now. And right here on fill mode, click none. This is how you make a neon sign the really, really easy way. And then right here on depth, you can just bring in and make your sign as thick as you want it. Your neon portion of the sign. And then we're gonna pull it back till he's just kind of touching this section here. And right now, it's a little bit too big. You can see how it's going above the big part of the text. So we're gonna go here to depth and just bring it up like that until it meets it. So, and then we can just take the neon sign and bring it in. And now they work together really nicely. Now we are gonna be in Eevee, so to make sure you are in Eevee, click this little camera icon, and right here, select Eevee, turn on ambient occlusion, bloom, screen space reflections, and if you'd like, motion blur. So I'm gonna hit Z and go to material preview. So for this right here, we're gonna make one material that's gonna be sort of everywhere on this scene. We're gonna kind of reuse that as much as possible for easy use. So I'm gonna click this little icon here, click new, make it metallic, and make it pretty dark. And then we're gonna head on over to the shading tab. I'm gonna hit the period key to bring it to view, and we can see this guy. Let's go ahead and start shading. So I'm gonna bring this up here, and then Shift A, COL for a color ramp on the search. Let's redo that. Always click that vertex color. All right, put it right into the roughness, and now let's get a noise texture, NOI, noise texture. Now go to your preferences here. In the add-on section, type in Node Wrangler and enable the Node Wrangler. Once you do that, Control T on the noise texture and use the object coordinate and plug the noise texture into the color ramp. So now we have all this craziness here. You can really start to see how the roughness is affecting this. So I'm going to bring the detail up and the roughness up, and we're going to bring this in, something like that, so we can start getting some reflections in this this guy here, and then we're going to bring this in to really accentuate the rough portions, and now we have a really nice grungy material on the black portion. Though I don't want it to be like a mirror in this, like these sections here, so I'm just going to bring a little bit toward the gray so it's not completely reflective but still nice and shiny. And now we have completed our little grunge material that we're going to keep using throughout this tutorial. Now I'm going to click the neon sign here, and you can click on these gizmos to make sure he is selected. And I'm going to click new. I'm going to delete the principled, Shift A, type in emission, click that, and click him into the surface. So now we have that. We can bring the strength up to make him nice and glowy and make him orange, but we're not actually going to do that specifically. We're going to get a little more detailed here. I'm going to collapse these windows. They're kind of distracting. So now we have this. What we're going to do is Shift A, search color ramp. Now plug the color ramp into here, and let's pick the color we want for this sign, which is a nice, really fiery orange. Now we do want this black portion here, and I'll show you why. Let's get a noise texture, plug that into the factor. I'm going to hit Control T for that node wrangler and use the object coordinate. And so now what we're going to do is crunch in this color ramp this direction and this direction so we start seeing this type of action, and we're going to bring it back a little bit. We don't want it to be completely black, but we do want to be able to see some brightness changes, some color changes in here to make it look more like a realistic neon sign. I'm going to bring the scale up a little bit, and then you can bring this in some more. Instead of linear, let's go to B-spline just to make sure we actually don't, clip with that blackness. So you can bring this as much as you want, and you won't, go completely black. And so now we have this really cool neon sign with a nice amount of detail to just push a little bit of realism. This isn't going to be photorealism as we're using Eevee, but to be able to kind of fake this realism is really going to go a long ways with your design and add in this nice amount of detail. All right, so for the text section of this, we are finished. Let's head back over to layout and let's start modeling the scene. I'm going to save this guy and just call it sign, and then save it on my desktop for now. So now we have this scene nice and saved. What we're going to start doing now is start creating the scene around this whole thing. So I'm going to go and Shift A, add a plane. I'm going to hit S5, just like that. So what I'm going to do first is make this guy around about that wide, something like this. Now, I'm going to hit Shift A, apply scale. I'm going to hit Tab, and make sure you are in the edge select mode right up here. Click this one, hold down Shift, click this one, and the back one. Now on the keyboard, I'm going to hit E for the extrude and Z for the axis, and then bring it up so it's something like this. I'm going to hit Tab to go out of edit mode, and I'm going to go to the modifiers and add a solidify and give it a negative and solidify it out to be something around here. Let's get a bevel modifier, bring the amount in, and I'm going to just give it a little bit on the amount and bring up the segments till we get a nice beveled edge. What I'm going to do now is bring my sign back to the back here, because we are going to be running our camera through this section here. Okay. Now let's make a quick wall, so plane, so RX90, and then I'm going to bring them up like this, and I'm going to bring it past the back here. Now, I'm going to hit the tilde key, which is right above the tab key for me, and click front, Shift A, add a camera. Now we're going to start working on our composition. I'm going to hit 0 to go to the camera view, and I'm going to hit G, middle click, and bring it to the back. Now I'm going to click on the green portion of my camera and bring it in the focal length until it's filling up the camera nicely like that. So we can kind of play with that now. Back some more. I want it to be at the very edge of this scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy and scale him up a little bit, and then here, and then I'm going to click the scale tool and bring him out, and then bring him up. Control A, apply the scale. Now I'm going to go back to the material view here, and of course nothing's reflecting. It doesn't look very cool, and that's because we need to apply some materials. Go to this little icon here and apply that metal material we made on the text. Go here, apply the same metallic material. Now what I'm going to do is go back here to shading and play with the material a little bit more to make it look the way I want it to look. I'm going to go here to the view, and I'm going to bring my scale up, something like this. And then I'm gonna bring maybe this down a little bit more to make it more reflective. So now it's starting to look really, really cool. Now I wanna add some weird kind of details to this scene. So I'm gonna hit Z and go to the material preview. And I wanna add some bumping to this scene. So we're gonna go ahead and take this material and go a little bit crazier with it. So Shift A and add a bump node, just like this. And click on the normal. I'm gonna get a Voronoi texture, VOR. And before that though, I do want to get a color ramp so I can manipulate it if I want to. And then plug the color into the height, the distance into the color ramp so that we can actually eat into the metal. If you use color, it's not going to actually really eat into the metal like we want it to. It's just going to have these sort of flat lines. So we want to use distance, and then let's use this vector here in the mapping and plug it into the vector. So now that we have this really ugly craziness, I'm gonna bring the strength down a little bit. I'm gonna switch from F1, I'm gonna go from Elucidian to Chebyshev to get a really cool pattern. I'm gonna go F1 to F2 to get a little bit more detail. F2 has a lot more details in the Chebyshev pattern than F1, which is why I'm a big fan of it. I'm gonna bring the scale up. I'm gonna hit 0 so we can actually go to the view so we can kind of see how it's gonna look in the render. Go to the color ramp, sort of play with it, maybe go something like this. And then we can bring that strength up and down as we like. So now we have some fun stuff going on within our scene. So this is gonna be super cool. You can play with the invert if you want it to go up or down. It really doesn't matter, it's all up to your preference. I kinda want it to be eating into it, so I'm gonna keep the invert off. So now we have some really cool details going on in our scene. Okay, let's go ahead and kind of tackle the lighting first before we add those weird wires. So Shift A, go ahead and get a area light, and I'm gonna click this and click our gizmos up here so we can see what's happening and bring him up right above the sign. And then I'm gonna bring it up above the camera view, give it a nice blue color, and bring up the strength to it so it looks like this. Now we're getting something really cool looking. I want to add some ambience to this scene. So we're going to get some volume. So we need a volume object for that. So get the cube. I'm going to hit S8. And hit Control A, apply the scale. And then let's go here to shading. Can't really see anything going on. I'm going to hit Z and go to render view. Again, nothing is really happening. That's okay. Click new. Make sure the cube is selected. Delete principled. And then get a volume. Principled volume. Go to the volume and click volume. And then if you bring your density down all the way to 0, everything comes back. And so you can bring the density just a little bit. So now we get some of that ambience, and then all the lights need to be brighter because volume does dim everything. And then of course, click on the neon sign and make that brighter as well. I'm gonna bring in that black a little bit. So now we have our scene nice and lit. How do we do those cool, weird looking wires and cords? It's super easy. First thing I want to do is click on this volume box, click on the orange square, viewport display, texture to wire. So now he's not in the way. How do you do those weird wires? We're gonna use curves. So go to curve and then path. So I'm gonna hit RZ90, and then I'm gonna scale it up till it fills this whole scene. I'm gonna hit tab, and I'm gonna left click and subdivide it once. So now we have this weird wire. Here's how you make him look like a wire. Is you click on these little portions right here. I'm gonna go to the move icon and start moving around the wire until you like how it looks. So what I'm gonna do now is sort of position him. I don't want it to be too crazy. So something like that. And then how do you add geometry to that? Click on the little icon here. On geometry, go to depth. Now we have a weird chord. And then now let's just make sure that it's not intersecting with the ground. So bring it up a little bit. And now we have this really cool, weird looking chord. So what I'm gonna do now is Shift D, duplicate this chord, and then go ahead and just start moving it around and get a nice line of chords. So what I'm gonna do is speed up this video, and you can do that yourself on yours, and we're gonna have a really cool set of wires. All right, so now I've finished putting in all my wires here. We need to texture them, so we're gonna make a really quick material. Let's click shading, and then just click on one of the wires, click new, make it metallic, keep it nice and bright. Now, I'm gonna click on the wall, and I'm gonna steal some nodes from this section here. So I'm gonna highlight this, Control C, click on the wire again, Control V, plug that into the roughness, and bam, now our wire is nice and textured. So now what we're gonna do is click all the wires that don't have a material by holding Shift and clicking them. I'm gonna make sure you don't click anything else, and then click this, and the last one you click is the one with the material. Control L, click materials, and now they all have that material attached to them, which is really, really cool. Now we have two more things left to do on this tutorial. Make the sort of elements that are gonna go around the wire, around the sign, and animate our camera. So let's go ahead and make those assets around the sign. What I wanna do is bring this guy up over here. So bring him, up a little bit, maybe to around here. That'll be really cool. And then I'm gonna go ahead and make some sort of scaffolding style elements to go around this scene. All right, so I finished with my scaffolding modeling here, just some quick cylinder stuff and array modifiers. Now what I'm gonna do is apply the same material on these wires onto these guys. So again, selecting all the ones without the materials on them, and then selecting the wire with the material, Control L, and then you apply the material. So I'm gonna do that really quickly. So now all of them have the material, which is really great. We have this situation right in the middle. I'm just gonna go ahead and quickly bring up this sign to the middle of the scaffolding. And then now we have our finished piece here. The last thing I'm gonna do now is animate the camera and use that really cool parallax effect on this situation. I'm gonna click on the camera first, click on the green, viewport display, and then right here on passer tout, I'm reading that really quickly, so I'm saying it wrong, but we now have this situation here. So what I'm gonna do is click my camera, G, and then middle click on the mouse to make sure I am on the edge of the scene. Now we're gonna animate it. So I'm gonna give myself like 500 frames just to make sure I don't run out of any. And I'm gonna count to 5. So I'm gonna click on the camera. Right here, I believe it's the Y axis that's gonna bring him in. And so just like that, and I'm gonna bring the rotation here, the angle here, and again, the Y axis. So it's something like this. So we're gonna click this on the keyframe and then click 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or however long you want your camera to be moving forward. And then I'm gonna bring it in to be something like this. Click that, and so now our camera is going in and then it slides in very nicely. I'm gonna go ahead and just bring this out a little bit more. I don't like how quick that was. So now we have our logo going through. Next thing I'm gonna do is click on the camera here and then play with the focal length. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna widen that focal length once we get closer. So let's click on this, give it a keyframe, go to the very end, and then widen the focal length till we like how wide this section is here. And then watch this really cool effect. You get this really crazy effect. What I'm gonna do though, it's not very extreme. So I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna redo my keyframing. So I'm gonna clear the keyframes and click that, go to around here, zoom really close into this, or something like that. And the closer you get, the more extreme the effect is going to be. Now let's click on the camera's focal length area, go to the end, and I'm gonna bring my focal length out like this. And then, oops, I forgot to add my keyframe. Let's go back 85. Click that, go to the end, bring that focal length till you like how wide it is. Click that, and then let's go. Now we have crazy parallax going through. It's like it's stretching everything out, and that's such a cool effect. So now we have finished our logo animation. Looks like everything stops at around 263. So we'll give it 263 on our frames, and our scene is finished. I do want to animate one more thing, and that's the angle. So I'm going to click this, go to the end, and then bring our angle up. So the logo's in the middle. I like that. Now let's check out the final product. It's going in, really cool. Just going straight into the scene, nice parallax effect, and your logo, name, whatever you're trying to use here is cool. All right, so now that we're finished, we're gonna go here to the printer icon. I'm gonna go and select where I want to save it. I'm gonna go PNG to FFmpeg video, encoding, go to MP4, medium quality to perceptually lossless, and then I'm gonna go to render, render animation, and you're done. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. This is the final result. I hope you enjoyed it. And again, you can go and check out the Patreon file. It's got a few more little details in there that I took some time to make it really cool. So if you wanna check all that out, Patreon's in the description. Thank you for watching.